Great. We now know that template literals allow us to create strings in a much easier fashion. But the area where template strings really shine is when we need to insert HTML dynamically. What am I talking about? Well, here's the example. Up in our index HTML, we have the heading 1 with some kind of text, let's say info, and then of course there is a div with an ID of result. Now what I'm doing in the app.js is I'm accessing first the result, that is going to be my div, and then I have some kind of object. And then with an object I have the properties. I have the name, job, as well as the hobby. And prior to template strings, the way we inserted the HTML dynamically, we selected, of course, the result. This is what we're doing on line 10. And then we used inner HTML, and then we constructed whatever HTML we would want to add. So if I would want to go with heading 2, then I'm going to access, of course, my variable. And then if you want to add the paragraph again, we just added the paragraph. And then in between the paragraph tags, we added whatever property we would want to access. And technically, again, it is manageable, but template strings just make it much more easier. So what I would like to do right now is just comment this out. Let's save it. And let's try to do the same thing using template strings. We're going to write the result. Again, we have already access to it. And then we're going to look for inner HTML. And the only thing we really need to do is just set up our backticks. Once we set up the backticks, I can type whatever HTML I would like within the backticks. Again, I don't need to use these concatenations where I say plus, and then let's say another plus for a paragraph. The way it works is we just set up a heading 2. We're going to go with closing of the heading 2. And then within heading 2, what we would want, I don't know, let's access the name again. So let's say name, and we can access by person.name. That's it. That's all we have to do. And call me crazy, but I find this much more easier. Now I'm going to set this up in multiple lines, because that is my preference. Usually when I set up HTML dynamically, I like to see exactly the HTML that I'm in fact placing in my page. So I'm going to go with another paragraph. I'm going to close out my paragraph. And then within the paragraph, let's access in this time the person job. So we're going to go again with person and job. Again, call me crazy, but I find this much more easier instead of using all the plus signs and then thinking, well, which element we are adding next. I right away can see, all right, so this is going to be my HTML, and I'm good to go. What is also awesome that we can place the template string within the template string. So we have the hobbies, correct? And what I would like to do is set up the unordered list right of the paragraph where we're just going to loop over the hobbies. And the guy has very interesting hobbies. He likes surfing, baking, and bowling. How it's going to look like? Well, we could start with unordered list. Then we're going to close out our unordered list. And remember that within the template strings, it's not like we can only access the variables. We can set up our expressions. So first I'm going to look for the hobbies. So person.hobbies. Then I'm going to map over it. And this is going to return me a new array. So I'm going to say map. Within the map, we pass in the callback function. And callback function is applied to each and every item. And then as a parameter to that callback function, we access each and every item. So we can call this however we would like, since it is, of course, our parameter. But in my case, I'm just going to call this item. Please call it hobby or whatever you would want, since we are iterating over the hobbies. So technically, you could say, all right, hobby. So single hobby would reference each and every item. And then as I'm looping over this array, what I would like to do is, since I'm returning a new array, I would like to wrap each and every item in the list item. How it's going to look like? Well, I could say return. Then again, I'm going to use the template string. And then in the template string, I'm just going to pass in li, then close out the li, so list item. And then remember, we can access the actual item, correct? Because what we can do is we can set up, again, $sign and curly brace. So this is going to allow us to access something dynamically. And what I'm trying to access? Well, I'm trying to access each and every item, correct? So I'm going to go with item. I'm going to pass in the item. And we're going to see that in our page, we have all the list items. The problem, though, right now is that we are returning a new array, which is fine, but we're also adding here this comma. And what I would want to do is set up another method that, in fact, is going to turn it into a string. The method that I'm talking about is join. So we're going to go with join. And then within the join, we just pass what kind of separator is going to be once we return the string. Since I wouldn't want to use anything, I'm just going to go with empty quotation marks. So essentially empty string. And then that's it. Now we have surfing, baking, as well as bowling. So not only we can place our HTML directly within the template string, but also we can place a template string within the template string. And this just makes our lives much more easier because we can set up our dynamic HTML within the matter of minutes. And to tell you honestly, it's much more cleaner to look at instead of never ending plus signs.